Hello everyone and welcome back to our live studio. I'm hoping that you're having a great Sunday and that you've had a chance to surf through a lot of the content that we've been able to share with you over this great weekend. I'm pleased to say that we've had lots and lots of people watching the Dave McKean video, which we launched at 2 o'clock. And I'd implore you, if you haven't seen it already, to go and have a look. It's really quite fantastic. But now we have quite a very special moment in that we're able to announce the winner of the first graphic novel competition with Myriad Editions. It's a fantastic, absolutely fantastic competition, and a lot of great books have been sort of nurtured and launched through this programme. And in fact, to tie in with the announcement today, the previous winner's book has just been published, called Biscuits Assorted by Jenny Robbins. I can say it's absolutely fantastic, completely and utterly engrossing. I've read it from cover to cover in 2 days, and that is available actually if you go onto our virtual comics clock tower through Myriad Editions. So anyway, for this year, we had 118 entries, which is amazing, on a range of topical and contemporary issues, and it really does prove that the graphic novel is alive and kicking. We're going to move into a video which has been produced with Myriad Editions, which will explain the background to the competition, talk about the shortlist, and will also announce the winner. So over to our video.
Drop it. Drop it.
My name is Corinne Pellman. I'm Creative Director of Myriad Editions, and welcome to our fourth first graphic novel competition. We look for a graphic work in progress by a creator or team who has not previously published a full-length graphic novel, and we offer the winners the chance to complete and publish their book with Myriad. I'm delighted to say that Biscuits by Jenny Robbins, winner of the 2018 competition, is out on early release during this festival weekend only. This year, I was joined by judges Zoe Ajonyo, Sasha Craddock, Ian Williams and Julie Tate, director of the Lakes Festival, and generous supporters of the competition. As ever, it has been difficult enough to select a long list, let alone a short list, but particular thanks must go to all our 118 entrants who had to submit twice, once physically and then digitally, so the judges could discuss online. Different stories, art and themes resonated with each of us, but one aim that united us all was to recognise a work that extended the reach of the graphic novel. Our shortlist was as follows. At first, we were overwhelmed by Pete Hearn's exuberant ideas for Plotting Missing People, a narrative about sexual assault, murder, cosmic forces, and a couple living in Morecambe. It just grew and grew on us, the deadpan humour, the gestural complexity of the art, smart, intelligent, layered, and human, a graphic shallow grave. We were seduced into being unwitting voyeurs of Veronica Morich's Cyberman, recording the online life of Ari, who streams his life 24 hours a day, hardly leaving his apartment. Veronica's chat with Ari and those of other followers peppers the page alongside painted images of what's on the screen, building up a portrait that is almost sculptural. We found Anthony Smith's adaptation of Tobias Tate's memoir Black unbearably powerful in places, an extraordinary and compelling story of a boy's life in care homes in the 70s and 80s. It is a bold and shocking account of class, race and dysfunctional families, with Tate's narrative complemented by the strength and confidence of Anthony Smith's art. Pietro Soldi's cliffhanger at the end of his extract for Everything I Ever Knew Is on Earth made us desperate to know more. Two men get chatting in a bar. One tells the other that he's just closed a deal to sell the earth. We love the concept and the art, the minimal style, the pacing that forced us to slow in our tracks and to savour the conversation. Eartha's Chill Out, an eye-popping account of a chemsex session, was a model of graphic short story composition in what promises to be a bold collection of interconnected queer stories. We loved the style, observation of and sympathy for his characters. It was touching, engaging, funny and deadly serious, and took us into new territories. Myfanwy Tristram's Satin and Hat captured time and place beautifully as she switched from past to present, revisiting her punk roots and the emotional legacy of her boyfriend's suicide. The controlled narrative, guided by the flow of the painted artwork, shows an artist at the top of her game with a true understanding of the comics medium. The ongoing story of her mother's developing dementia, Denise Dorance's Polar Vortex, conveyed the doom of diagnosis, the horror of family dynamics, and the frustration of living on different continents, with humour, effortless drawing, and an enviable lightness of touch, capturing sense of place and distance with extraordinary skill. In a moment, we'll hand over to Julie Tate to announce the winner. But first, a big thank you to Julie and to our fellow judges. Let's hear from them.
Hello, I'm Ian Williams. I'm one of the judges. I'm a cartoonist and doctor. I'm a former finalist for the first graphic novel competition, and I went on to publish 2 graphic novels so far with Myriad, working on the 3rd. I also run a website called graphicmedicine.org. This has been a really exciting project to be involved with. I've really enjoyed reading all the entries. The finalists were of outstanding quality. Any one of them would have been a worthy winner, worthy for publication. But I think what we found, what we agreed on with the final winner, is that they pushed the medium of graphic novels into areas that we hadn't really seen before. I'm really excited to see how this project develops.
Hello, I'm Sasha Craddock and I'm an art critic and curator. The experience of judging this has been thrilling. The long list has taken me all over the place, formally, conceptually and emotionally, and the shortlist amazing again and again. From exhausted gay sex to associative value, relentless intensity, sculptural quality, and real distance conveyed, and time warp. I'm madly impressed.
Hi everyone, my name's Zoe Ajonia. I'm a chef and writer from London. Thrilled to have been part of the panel for this Myriad Graphic Novel Prize. A stunning collection of entries, very difficult few months picking them apart to get a shortlist, and the shortlist was just an absolutely stunning range of artists there. It was so difficult, but the person who won had a beautiful, specific, interesting, new kind of take on the graphic novel, and I think that's what we were after. Beautiful story, beautiful artwork, very timely and prescient for where we are in the world at the moment. And you know, we just all fell in love with that one. And when you see it, you will too, I'm sure. But listen, shortlist, everybody on the shortlist did a fantastic job. I'm sure we'll see your books in shops on shelves soon. And yeah, just really excited to have been part of the process. And thanks so much to Myriad once again. And congratulations to the winner.
Hello, I'm Veronica Morich. I'm a comic book artist based in Falmouth, and I'm the author of Cyberman. And I'm, to be honest, at a loss of words to win the Myriad First Graphic Novel competition, and I can't wait to see this project becoming a book.
Absolutely brilliant, and just want to echo my congratulations to Veronica. It is an extraordinary piece of work so far, and as you heard on the video, we're all very excited to see how it will progress. It really was an extraordinary shortlist, and I felt very privileged to be part of it. Not the shortlist, sorry, the judging. And I would really like to extend a huge thanks to Corinne Perlman and the team at Myriad, and also to my fellow judges. Thank you very much for listening. We're now moving on to another kind of launch. It's our breakthrough programme. I'm not going to give you too much detail because you will see in the film and you'll hear in the film a lot more about the project. It's a Licaf generated programme, and it's been running for a couple of years, ably led by Tim Pilcher and the team at Soaring Penguin Press. This video that follows, it's quite long, but it is necessarily so because it takes you on a journey with 4 people who have been mentored through a process, who have extremely wonderful talent, and have just needed and appreciated some additional support to take their work that little bit further. I want to thank Tim and Soaring Penguin Press, thank Carol Tate for coordinating the programme, and also Leonard Sultana for producing this video for us today. If you want to have a look at the anthology, you can go to the Virtual Comics Clock Tower website and go to Soaring Penguin Press's table or to Licaf's table, where you'll get more information. Enjoy.
Drop it. Drop it.
My name is Leonard Sultana. I'm the editor-in-chief of theconventioncollective.com, and it's my pleasure and privilege to welcome you to this special presentation as part of the Lakes International Comic Art Festival Live. Initially launched by Carol and Julie Tate of the festival at Lakes 2018 and run over the last year and a half, Breakthrough is an initiative created in partnership with noted writer-editor Tim Pilcher that aimed to provide underrepresented creative talent the tools and the means to express themselves through the medium of comics, while also giving a chance to open the door into a career in the industry. The festival, in conjunction with partners such as Arts Council England, Wellcome Trust Fellowship, Soaring Penguin Press and Quarto Books, selected 4 amazing talents, each with a unique voice, to take part in mentoring sessions from some of comics' leading lights and one-to-one guidance from people in the industry with the goal of shaping their stories. This ultimately came together in the form of an anthology book, Our Time, stories that talk about important issues affecting Britain today, such as disability, climate awareness, Black Lives Matter and Brexit. And it's fantastic to see Our Time seeing the light of day, published physically and also available online as of this weekend of Lakes International Comic Art Festival Live. I'm lucky today to be joined by the 4 incredible talents selected to be part of Breakthrough. Hannah Hodgson, the writer of Assumptions, a look at people's perceptions of those with disabilities based on Hannah's own personal experiences. Abby Bircham, the writer-artist of Worry and Vort, a fantastical eco-fantasy story which draws on the rise of the Extinction Rebellion movement. Danny Christie, the writer-artist of Black Window, a look at life in Britain from the perspective of people of colour, drawing on Danny's own personal experiences, including his mother's battle with mental health issues and their own clashes with the police and authorities. And Michael Lightfoot, the writer-artist of Looking for Love in Brexit Britain, a parody of 1950s romance comics which examines how relationships remain fraught after the divisive referendum of 2016. Michael also serves double duty in the anthology as the artist of Hannah's Assumptions. We're also joined by Breakthrough editor Tim Pilcher to talk about the origins of the project and what it was like to be able to work with and showcase these amazing talents. So, Tim, how long has it been from initial concept to selection to publication?
God, well, it's going almost 2 years ago now, really. It's quite interesting. Actually, a little bit over. It's funny how it was done. I was actually approached by Julie and Carol Tate from the Lakes Arts Comics Festival. And, there's an international bit in there, I should have forgotten. And I'd been exhibiting there pretty much from the second show, and we'd built up a rapport and everything. They knew the sort of stuff I'd done in the past. I've done lots of anthology books using new creators, and they approached me and asked, would you be interested in developing this breakthrough initiative, which was completely designed to look for new talent around the UK and help develop and nurture that talent to find a new generation of comic creators. Most importantly, comic creators who aren't the sort of people that necessarily always create comics, that don't have a voice within comics. So it was all about kind of diversity right from the start. So we were looking for whether it's people from the BAME community or from disabled or special needs or people who live in the countryside, because a lot of comics are produced by people that live in kind of cities and, you know, sort of quite metropolitan and art related. So we wanted to get people from all over the country. And so we put out this call. We launched it in the Lakes in 2018, and it was always going to be an 18-month long project. So from start to finish, I guess it's just been about 2 years, really.
A thread to the creators that you chose and the stories that you selected is that they touch on very contemporary themes and issues. Was that a necessity for submission or a happy accident in the final selections?
You know, it's really interesting. Whenever you try and do anything really topically and, you know, sort of right on the sort of the zeitgeist, often it doesn't work because, you know, comics is a slow game. You know, you can get things turned around very quickly, but we had a long training process within this as well. So there was no way that we could say in 18 months whether these were going to be relevant in a year and a half's time. What was really fascinating, though, was everyone had chosen the subjects that they wanted to talk about. And last year in 2019, the Extinction Rebellion thing was very big. It was hitting the streets and everything. And then sort of COVID came along and all of these sorts of things that we were discussing. So there's sort of fell by the wayside a bit. And then things like the Black Lives Matter movement sort of regained resurgence. And so Danny Christie's story, which is very much about racism and growing up and being black in Britain and how that affects with mental health issues, his story suddenly came up to the fore. So we've seen the kind of news agenda sort of piggybacking a bit. And now with Abigail Bertram's story, which is a little fantasy story about as an allegory for Extinction Rebellion, we're now seeing Extinction Rebellion coming back into the news agenda. So these things are kind of like moved around and developed over that time. And that's been really interesting to watch because they've picked their story, they picked what the subject they wanted to talk to, and we've seen how the news media has kind of come in and out of that almost. So actually, they are all still, I think, completely relevant to what's happening now in the media as they were sort of, you know, a year and a half ago, if not more so. Again, I put in the afterward, the elephant in the room, of course, is COVID, because I don't think there was anyone last year was had a magic crystal ball and was going to be able to see what was going to happen. So there isn't anything about the coronavirus or anything on that side, simply because by January, February, people were already committed to doing the artwork and doing the stories, and that would have been too big a change to come around. But I guess in some ways, you know, you could say that Hannah Hodgson's story about the assumptions that people make about disabled people. She is a disabled person in a wheelchair, and she is having to self-isolate. So in some ways, that kind of comes back into that sort of idea of disability, you know, and the issues that are caused by COVID. So, you know, it still stays really incredibly fresh. And I think the nice thing about this writing is they're a snapshot, I think, of you know, British culture and society as it is right now and has been maybe for the last couple of years. So I think it will maintain its relevance for a long time to come.
Why these four creatives? What made them stand out from all the rest?
Well, I think, you know, the first and foremost, the sense of enthusiasm and love of comics. I think that was the key thing, you know, because as I said, comics aren't a quick fix. They take a while, and you have to be in it for the long haul. So I think we wanted people that weren't going to be kind of flighty and just kind of zip in and get bored and then clear off again. We wanted people who were actually going to put some time and effort into this and some dedication. And they all came across as very dedicated and keen to do the work.
The stories that have been selected range from incredibly autobiographical to abstract and fantastical in nature. But what would you say was your role in shaping those final stories as an editor?
Well, I mean, from the start, I didn't really want it to be all autobiographical stories in that sense, not directly, because I would have thought it gets a bit samey after a while, and I wanted sort of creators to kind of push themselves a little bit by talking about stuff in a way that pushed their creativity and made them think slightly differently. So with Abigail's, she went for a whole fantasy thing because that's what she's really into, and that was a nice allegory to get away from it being sort of too polemic and too obviously political, although those elements are obviously in there. There's sort of famous politicians kind of hidden as the characters within the strip. And again, with Michael Lightfoot's Looking for Love in Brexit Britain, on the surface, obviously, you go immediately, okay, this is a Brexit Britain sort of thing, but what he started doing was looking at 1950s romance comics and those sorts of things, and looking at the kind of hyperbolic kind of language that's used in there, and this kind of highly charged, emotive sort of storytelling that you see in the kind of the classic sort of Kirby and Simon sort of romance comics from the 1950s. So he kind of took that element and adapted that into a modern context. And use that sort of language and that storytelling in a modern context.
So let's talk about the mentoring aspect of the project. How did those sessions develop? Who did you get involved, and how eager were they in participating?
Yeah, well, sort of over the 18-month period, we had 3 workshop weekends where we all met up in different parts of the country in a hotel. We had a working room, and it was very much a chance to get everyone together, for them to kind of bounce ideas off of each other initially, and just to kind of, get that sense of camaraderie and as a team working. And we had sort of guest speakers come along. So for the first one, it was just the launch, and we went through and we discussed ideas, we discussed what they wanted to achieve and how we could help them achieve that. And then they would go away, and I would be constantly in touch with them, and we'd talk back and forth via sort of various different ways, whether it's Skype or sort of email or things like that. And they would send me various bits and pieces. Then on the second one, we were lucky we had Dave Gibbons came along and talked about his experiences of working in comics, how he personally works in comics, and gave feedback on the work they'd done between the first workshop and the second one. And on the third one, we had Charlie Adlard. So we had 2 of the comics laureates come along and give their advice. And Charlie Adlard's the artist of The Walking Dead. And of course, the project had moved on a lot more since then. So he could then look at what they'd done up to that point, and again, giving them some hints and tips and advice on how he would have approached any of the problems that they were experiencing, and just kind of keep them getting on, really. So it was great that they could have sort of like some also advice, not only from me, but for some of the kind of the giants within the industry.
So when did you first hear about the Breakthrough Project?
I first heard about Breakthrough from Bobby Joseph. He is a comic writer, and he did a writing course in City Lit in London, I believe. I think he's still doing it. But that's how I met him. And he has been a huge, huge encouragement of just putting myself out there, getting my writing out there and getting my work out there. And one day he emails me and says, hey, there's this festival that I do talks at. I heard they're doing a competition. Do you want to enter it? I think you should. I was a little bit hesitant to begin with, but he basically said, "You need to enter it. Trust me, it's going to be worth doing it if you get through." And here I am.
I love comics, but I've always grew up in a place where, you know, in a world where there wasn't that much like black characters. That there was loads of black characters. Like, you can talk about Spawn, you can talk about Blade, you can talk about all these different characters, but like specifically written like in a British way, like by a black British person, like it's like representation, isn't it? So I bought that book, and yeah, we started talking. I've never met him in person, but we started talking online a lot, and he's quite encouraging of what I was doing, because I just found it amazing that like I was trying to make like the first kind of Yardy looking superhero, but he'd already kind of done it in his own way. So it showed that there was definitely something out there that wanted that to happen. But yeah, he was the one who sent me the link to apply for the competition. He put me onto it, and then I applied. I sent some of my work, and I started talking to Carol, and then I went to the first day, and that's how it went. That's how I got involved in that. That's how I found out. It was sent to me by a friend.
So it was about a year or so ago. And I found it on Facebook. One of my friends had shared it and said, "This is really cool things happening." And at first I wasn't thinking about applying, but then I started to get some ideas about things that I could write about, and actually I wanted to expand what I write and how I write. So I applied and got in. So it was great.
The Breakthrough project, I think it might have been with socially, actually, through Tim, because we both live in Brighton, and I think it might have been at the Cartoon County Cartoonist Club. I remember him talking about it, and I wasn't sure that it would be something that I could apply for, actually. But what actually happened was he said to me very shortly before the deadline, actually, he said, "Why don't you apply?" And I did, and they accepted me, and I was delighted.
Whatever the style of the stories told, all of the stories in the book come from a very personal place. You could say that's the very definition of Breakthrough. How much of an editorial guiding hand did you get? What notes did you get back about your story? And how do you feel that they shaped your story for the better?
I went into the competition confident anyway, because like I said, I've already made a book of my own without any opportunity to help me. Like, my book's self-published and stuff. I've just done it. So I've got the experience in it, but I don't have the industry experience. And what this advertised to me was that I would be working with professionals that would show me how it's really done on an industry level. Like, this book that I made took me 3 years to do. If I did it the way that they've showed me how to do, would have took me a couple of months if I was really focused. But you know, like what we did do, what was good is that we had David Gibbons, and we had other people come and give their input, you know, people with valuable years worth of experience and knowledge, and they were supportive. So like, even the advice they gave, I never really got that much advice to say that I had to change much. It was very small things, because I already had a vision of what I wanted to do.
Yeah, so I think one of the better things about the course is the fact that we were kind of allowed free roaming. We were allowed to come up with our ideas as long as it fit the theme, and then just go mad with it. Tim himself was really, really helpful. It's not like there was a tug of war for kind of what the final result would be. It was more that they wanted to help me make it the best that it can be, rather than kind of controlling what it was.
I mean, getting to actually sit down with Dave Gibbons and go over thumbnails was a dream come true. In fact, you might be able to see I've got on my wall there a book of his. It's largely comprised of his thumbnails. So to actually sit down with him and go over those was tremendous. And in the case of that one, that with Hannah's story, actually, when I discussed that with Dave, he was sort of able to suggest a shift in camera angles, which really helped bring the story together.
Yeah, he was absolutely incredible. He really got my story and was a driving force for change within it, but also very, very respectful of what we had worked on, that it was very personal, but also he was very instrumental in keeping the poetry in there because we weren't sure if that would work. And he helped us with the layout of it and the telling of it. And yeah, it was really, it was just an incredible, it didn't quite feel real that day. Having such a legend help you with your little story. It was amazing. And then Tim, he's also been fabulous with just really helpful as much time as we have needed. Whenever we've needed it, he's kind of dropped what he's been doing and got back to us. And the weekends themselves they were really information dense. But we also got to have a lot of fun with it, which I'm really grateful for.
I think one of the most common things that I kind of got was my art style is very much an homage to animation, like current cartoons on TV. And that's something that I did want to kind of show off a bit, so I'm kind of glad that came across. With all the movements and things, I did want to make it feel like something that you'd sit down on a Saturday afternoon and you'd watch with your family, or maybe just watch by yourself and just enjoy it.
Yeah, there were times where basically the main thing that I took away from it was pacing, because, you know, it's a rhythm. So when people can see the images and put the words to it, like somebody who understands comics or understands just writing in general, you get to be able to feel the situation in the moment. So I concentrated on what they were teaching me about pacing, because my story is one that has action, not like movie star action, but, you know, it's got action in it, but it's actually like it's a adaptation of me going to visit my mother in a mental health place and trying to get her mood and her mannerisms across the way that I remember them. So I think, you know, at the start, Tim was kind of trying to see if I could maybe pace it a little faster. But I think as he understood that this is actually an experience that I'm trying to capture in the comic book form more than actually trying to make a comic book, I think that he started to understand that, you know, there are parts in my story that is quite slow, like the parts where I'm in the room with her, and because that's how it was for me. So, you know, now I think it works well, because then when we get into the flashbacks and the memories and all of these things, you know, it is quite fast paced and you get to see them, you get to go into the characters' minds, but it's an intimate and it's a very strange situation to be in, like being in a mental health clinic, meeting your mum. Your mum doesn't want you to be there. You don't really want to be there, but you're trying to support your mum. Your mum's trying to be the best that she can be.
These are not passive stories by any stretch of the imagination. They're all designed to elicit a very visceral response in the reader. Reading the back and finally seeing them realised in this form, how has the story and your own reaction to it changed from your original concept?
Well, in the case of my story, Looking for Love in Brexit Britain, I did have quite a clear vision of it. And it, ultimately, I can't. The sad thing about making things like this is ultimately you can't ever look at it objectively yourself as to how well it works as a story or not. That's for other people to say, or even if it's interesting or not. That's for other people to say. But I did more or less illustrate the thing that I saw in my head initially, and so it didn't really change. However, things do change along the way, and it's difficult to remember. I mean, it does go through an awful lot. There's a huge amount of process that goes on before you actually get to drawing it and then inking it. So it's very difficult to summarize. But the last page actually changed. right, I think, at the penciling stage. Because for me, there's lots of things that change along the way, and you have a sense in your gut that things are about right. However, the last page always bugged me, and it actually went through quite a lot of drafts. I mean, I would intermittently sort of revisit it and try to draft it one way or the other throughout. And then, as so often happens with these things, it's a funny business that you only partially consciously control. Suddenly, the last page just sort of came to me out of the blue, and I sketched it out and looked at it a couple of days later to sort of, ascertain that I wasn't just sort of having a daft idea. And I got that sense in my gut. No, I know how this ends now, and that seemed to work. So, yeah.
So initially, Worry and Vault was supposed to just be kind of a retelling of what happened with Extinction Rebellion back in May 2019. But as I started writing the script and really getting to know these characters, I started seeing parts of myself in all of them. But mainly it was to do with Worry and the fact that I stress so much. It's one of my worst flaws is that I'm always kind of on edge stressing about something. There's always something to worry about. But it's something that both I am learning still and that Worry learns in the comic, that sometimes that can only do so much. Sometimes you actually have to physically do something about it because that's the only reason it's ever going to change. And I really wanted to channel that, and I hope it's come across in the comic.
Hannah, what made you decide on an autobiographical story?
I can't really remember. I think pretty quickly, just with conversations I'd been having with Tim, we decided that it would be more powerful if I wanted to, if I would put my face to these stories. And by doing so, I hope it shows where we're at as a society. It's not, the disability isn't the issue, is my, what I hope the takeaway will be. It's kind of the attitude surrounding my disability, and it's outside forces that kind of force me into being the victim-y type of thing. And it's a very, I know I keep on saying this, but it's so strange to be living it and also to see it on the page. But I hope that it will be a good educational piece.
Did the writing of the story act as a kind of cathartic process for you? Was that the intention starting out?
I think I have definitely expanded what I've been writing with my poetry since Breakthrough. I think I was in a very damaged and I was in a tight spot, really. I was on the verge of huge depression, which I've been going through recently, and it kind of it's been very cathartic in that I have managed to use poetry and this alongside my therapy with the therapist. So it has been a great way of saying this is how I'm feeling, but also being art, which I think, I've always said that writing has been my therapy. And while that hasn't been the healthiest thing, it's kind of been a me avoiding stuff thing. It has definitely helped, and now I read things that I was writing and I understand where that was coming from, and the impact that was having on me at that time. It's been a great way of separating horrendous things that have happened into a piece of art rather than that occupying my mind all of the time, because it has been quite traumatic. It's been a wonderful way of sort of making it into something else, making it other people's in a way, and going, it's art, it's not part of me. It's been a real process of learning.
The breakthrough thing basically came around just at the right moment when I was still processing my mother passing. So, and I'm still processing it now, but it was a lot more intense at the time when it first started. So, like when I was thinking of an idea, when they gave me the brief and told me what the idea was, what ideas I had to come up with, it was, oh, brainer, I'm gonna tell my mum's story. And yeah. And I wanted to commemorate my mother. I mean, she has an experience as a person, as a black person, born and raised in this country, but, you know, she was a Rasta as well. And she'd passed, and I wanted to commemorate her in some way. But I knew there was my mum she was diagnosed with mental health stuff. And while she was alive, I was trying to support her with that. And I tried to encourage her to write something about her life. I encouraged her to be creative again and write something about life. But she never lived long enough to get the chance to do that. So I think this is a good way for me to kind of, you know, try and do that for her, but also make sure that, you know, her story doesn't go untold, even if it's just a shorthand version.
Michael, what made you decide on a first-person perspective story?
I mean, I think it's more intimate, isn't it? It's likely to be more intimate. And it's also something, it's actually a strength of comics. I mean, people think that first person works especially well in novels, and obviously it does work well in novels. But I mean, one of the differences between novels and comics is I mean, the reader kind of completes the work with a novel in that they visualize what they're reading, whereas with the comic, you're able to sort of do the visualizing for the reader. And yet you're also, the comics medium does support more first-person narration than film does, for example. It generally doesn't seem to work too well in film, and a lot of directors avoid it. You know, you can do it, but it just doesn't seem to work too well, certainly not to do too much of it, whereas the comic medium does support that. So I tried to sort of see how far I could go with giving you internal dialogue. Again, I can't say ultimately how well it works. It's a balancing act, but it's something that you can do. You know, can work in comics. So I wanted to exploit that, and you know, I wanted to make the thing as intimate as I could. I think my one, I had a pretty clear, almost a sort of fever dream that was quite clear, that I sort of knew what I wanted to do, and it largely writes itself, actually, which is lucky. Doesn't always happen.
Abigail, Worry and Vought is most certainly the story with the most fantastical backdrop, even though it comes from a very real-world place. What was the challenge of creating a new fantasy realm and transposing your take of Extinction Rebellion onto it?
Yeah, the challenge of doing that was actually being able to kind of portray it properly, because I was constantly worried about, is it going to be too subtle, or is it going to be too heavy-handed? Is it going to come off a bit preachy? Is it going to come off a bit too subtle and people won't get the message? I wanted there to be kind of a clear link towards what's going on at the moment, or what was going on at that point, because that was around May 2019 when the Extinction Rebellion did all of those protests, which completely put London into a standstill, and I'd never seen that before. So that was on my mind, and I was really thinking about it, thinking this is so strange and incredible, and I feel really inspired by that. So I'd like to try and shape it that way. So taking the events of what happened in London and moving it to the very base core idea of what it was people standing up for the world around them and against people who want to put that at risk. And then once I'd stripped all of the realism that I could off of that, it was just kind of applying all the fantasy to it.
Yeah.
So it's like putting it down to like its very bare bones and then bringing it back up.
Worry and Vought is also arguably the most optimistic out of the four. Was that the conscious decision from yourself from the start, or was that something that came along in the evolution of the story?
Ongoing.
Yeah, I mean, environmentalism as a whole, that's exactly what it is. Like, the protest ended and there was some changes made and it got people's attention, but that's not going to end pollution. That's not going to magically stop things from going extinct. It is an ongoing problem, and it's something that we need to fight for constantly. And whilst that can be quite tiring, it's really, really important to celebrate the little victories. Like, just personally, I'm so over pessimistic stories about struggles and, oh, we won this fight, but at what cost? And it's so depressing. It's so important to remember that the reason why we're doing these things and fighting through these storms is the sunny day at the end, so to speak. We want to get there and we want to make things better, and we have to keep thinking of that to keep pushing forward. And it's okay to look forward to that, you know, rather than just be miserable about everything.
That makes sense.
What's been your thoughts on the Breakthrough project now that it's nearing publication?
Well, Breakthrough is probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. I mean, I mean that very seriously, because it's been an ambition of mine for several years to make a graphic novel, and I've been saying, possibly cheekily, I don't know, that this is a graphic novella. Which I think you could say it is. So it's a significant step towards being able to make a graphic novel or the graphic novellas. And if I am able to do that, it will be entirely thanks to this program, to the Breakthrough program.
Yeah, it's been excitement. Everybody I've told has been really, really excited to see the upshot of it. And I think it's all come together beautifully. The book is going to be a lovely thing to hold. The work is absolutely stunning. The artists are just incredible. So yeah, I think it's an exciting time. It really is. And we've all worked really hard, and we're going to have a physical book to hold at the end of it. So yeah, it's been a really amazing thing, especially with working with Licaf. I went to Licaf, I've been many, many years to the Licaf Festival. So to be affiliated with them and to have such brilliant contact with them. Carol is incredible. Yeah, it's been it's made me realize what more I could do in my career in the future, which is very exciting.
And what's been the reaction from friends and family to finally seeing your story in its final format?
I don't know yet.
Haven't they seen it?
Nah. Well, like, I've shared little previews on my social media and stuff. Like, maybe when I've completed a few pages, I've, did the screen recording on my phone and put it on Instagram and stuff. Like, people are excited because I've got my other book already, and quite a few people have bought that, and people are I've got the impression that some people are like watching me progress, and there's a slight anticipation. I haven't got a huge following, but I know that there's some people that are looking forward to seeing it, especially when it comes out and it's being shown around, and I can really promote it. But other than that, I don't know, because it is quite personal and it is quite relevant and it is quite hard hitting. I think that if people really read it, I think that it would have a different kind of reaction. But you know, I'm optimistic anyway. I'm trying not to get. I'm trying not to like because it's not just me doing it. Like I'm trying not to like jump the gun too much. So I haven't revealed everything. I mean, my sister knows about it. My brother knows about it, which are my mother's children as well. And you know, but nobody's really told me what they think yet. I think they're just waiting to see how it turns out. You know what I mean?
I think weirdly enough, they're less surprised than I am. It all still feels like this isn't really happening to me. Like maybe this was meant for someone else, and there was a mix-up. But my friends and family have always kind of. It's not really a big deal to them because they knew I was going to do it. They expected this to happen eventually, and whenever they say that I'm like they're so proud of me or like they knew this was going to happen, it grounds the whole situation for me, and I don't think I could be doing half of the things that I do without them. And I'm really, really grateful for all of the encouraging people I have in my life.
Well, off the back of this, I've actually written a children's picture book, and I've got a meeting with the publisher, which is very exciting. And I would like to write a full-length version of my story. I think in the future, at some time, I've got to live a bit more and get more comfortable within my own skin, and then going forward, I think I would love to continue working in this medium because it's something so special. It really captures the experience unlike anything I've ever worked with before, which is fabulous.
Yeah, Breakthrough is definitely going to be a springboard for the future, I think. I'd love to continue more of what I'm doing with the illustrations collective that I've got, making my own comics, just doing a lot of the little things that I do. But I'd love to be able to work in comics full time. That is a huge, huge thing, but quite personal to me. And it's going to be hard to achieve, getting all that work constantly. But I would love to either go into working on inking or colouring or maybe even penciling until I feel like I have my own story that I really, really want to commit all of my time with. And then once I've done that, I can send it to publishers and see how it goes. I mean, it's basically just made me that I do know that I want it's made it so I know that I want a career in comics. I've never been more sure of anything.
Excellent.
Well, I hope that I can do it. And it really depends how people respond to this, or even if they do, if they're interested. That's not for me to say. But if there is enough interest so that I can move forward, then I would be delighted. You know,
it's a hell of a platform. It's a hell of a platform to go from.
Yeah, but you've also got to just consider the if you've got to have. I mean, quite a lot of people have got to be interested in order to move forward. You know, they've got to be interested in your work. So that just remains to be seen. I don't know.
Fair enough.
May I ask? Did you enjoy it? Would you have bought it?
I did.
I can kind of remember back to the first workshop when the theme got revealed of it being about our lives in London and our own experiences. And the entire time we were going through the brief, I was thinking, how can I turn this into some way that I can draw like fantastical things? Because I love it. It's how I express myself. that is my reality in a sense.
Well, thank you again to Leonard, Sultana, for pulling that video together for us, and to Tim Pilcher and Soaring Penguin Press and Carol Tate too. I particularly want to thank the participants for being so open in that video, for sharing their experiences and talking about their hopes and aspirations. So we're very much looking forward to seeing how the anthology is received. As I said earlier, it's available through the Licaf and Soaring Penguin Press elements of our virtual clock tower, and we'll continue to be promoting it vigorously over the next few months and beyond. And I think what's important to realise is that our festival isn't just one weekend in October every year. We do run a whole range of different programmes, educational programmes, mentoring programmes, we commission artists, and we work on international partnerships. So the festival weekend is kind of a coming together of all of those things. Our utmost priority is to encourage more comics reading, and more importantly, or as importantly, new comics creators from all backgrounds to come through, be published, either self-published or by existing publishers, and for their work to be seen. One of the things that's come out of lockdown from our observations is that people have continued to create. All you need is a pen and paper or a digital tool of some description, and you can continue to make work. And the same has happened with the animation industry, etc. So I think although it's been very tough and a lot of creators have not been able to sell their work because they haven't been able to go to festivals and conventions, and distribution networks have broken down to some degree, the future is still bright. So we're going to be very shortly joining Sean Phillips again in his studio in the Lake District to see how he's been getting on since we visited him at 11 o'clock this morning, where he talked to us, but also started a piece of work, a new commission, which we're going to see how that's been developing. After we finish speaking to Sean, we'll be playing the Pass the Panel video, which again kind of sums up the festival very neatly, in that 16 creators from around the world have created an original piece of work where they not really known what they were taking on until they actually saw the previous page that had been created by another artist. The video lasts about 30 minutes, but it doesn't feel like 30 minutes at all. It whizzes by. It's just amazing. And then at 6 o'clock, we kind of finish up with a myriad of different light-hearted and more serious items, which I hope will give you food for thought and also encourage you to spend time this evening or next week or maybe for the next couple of months absorbing all of the content that we've put out there for you. All feedback appreciated. So when we go over to Sean's studio, we're going to be there for about an hour. Please feel free to ask questions. We would welcome them, observations, whatever. Yeah, and just keep those coming. Sean is hoping that people will be quite adventurous in what they ask. And he's also going to be showing us a little bit more about the process and the way that he works. So I think he's ready and waiting for us. Hello, Sean. There is his studio, and there's half his head, and there is Sean sprinting to the camera.
Hello.
Hello, sorry to disturb you.
That's all right.
How have you been getting on?
I've nearly finished, it's gone all right. A bit overworked.
Oh, wow. That was remarkably, but of course you've been spending, how many hours have you spent on it now? 5 hours?
Oh no, I only do about an hour.
Anyway, people really enjoyed that visit earlier on. We've had lots of really positive comments. People asking us if we'll do more of these kind of studio visits as well. We've got some questions. We'd very much like you to share a bit more of your process and stuff, but maybe we could just start by looking at what you've been doing and how it's all developed.
The camera around.
Does that work?
Is that working? You
wow.
Can see that, can you?
Yeah, that is amazing.
Yeah, so I've done a few more layers of paint. when we last saw it, there was probably just the first layer, maybe a little bit extra. So I'll put in another layer of a similar colour again over the skin. So you can see there where there's like 3 different tones.
Yep.
A bit more pink, a bit more blue, well, indigo. And the last thing to do now is to add the darkest parts.
Right. That's chillingly...
One more layer.
I mean, that's so evocative and feels so real. I know that we've had a number of people on social media asking if they can have a print, please.
Yeah. Well, I might do. I did do a print of the last one I did, the last Blade Runner piece I did, so we'll see.
Yeah. Wow, it's stunning. So is there anything in there that you're not entirely happy with, or?
Well, I think it's a little bit overworked. It would have been nice if it just went down in one layer, or as few layers as possible, and it looked like I did it on purpose. But some of it's a little bit overdone. But I think once I get the final black on, well, almost black, it'll bring it all together a little bit more.
Yeah,
but I'm pleased with. You can't see her, can you? I'm pleased with Pris there. Even though because it's only about 3 inches tall, so that's not bad for detail.
Can you get a bit closer? Yeah, wow, that's amazing.
I quite like that because it's nice and loose still, and it looks fine. And the Harrison Ford picture looks okay as well, I think.
Yeah, very much.
He looks a bit young, maybe, but I'd add some wrinkles on the last go over.
Good. It's always good to add a few wrinkles.
Yeah, I'm pleased with it. Yeah, I'm pleased with
it. That is just beautiful. Maybe we can just have another look at the end in case people are joining us as we kind of travel through the next however many minutes. Have another look at it. I mean, as I mentioned to you, people they're fascinated by process as well as seeing, product. Could you, because we talked about it, Cats, early on, and photo referencing, but also how the work develops from pencil to ink.
Yeah, I can show you that. Well, what I've got here, I've got a page from the second Reckless book, which I've been working on this week. So none of this has been seen yet, but I don't think Ed will mind. So this is a book I get made for every new project I do.
Okay.
So I get it printed via Lulu, which is an online print on demand place, and all I do is add a grid. Print. So there's a grid on every page because all the books I do with Ed have all got 3-tier grids.
Yeah,
we've always done that since. Well, Sleeper didn't, but all our create your own stuff has always been like this since the beginning of Criminal. So that just saves me one part of the thing of ruling out every page, and from that I then draw some thumbnails. So this is only the first 4 pages so far. So if you can see what that is. These are just for me. These aren't meant to be nice drawings or anything. These are just for me to figure out what I need to do after I've done this part. Mm-hmm. So I'm working out the storytelling, basic angles on things, and what I need to go and get a photograph of. So all the things that have been scribbled over with pink, that is what I do once I've taken a photo of myself dressed up as the characters.
Yeah.
So that's just so I can keep track of where I've got to.
Okay.
It usually takes me on a good week, I'll thumbnail, which is what these are, thumbnail and photograph 8 pages, and draw them in a week. So on a Monday, I do the thumbnails like this, and then I shoot my photograph. But I really, really hate shooting the photograph. I wish I'd learned to draw. So it's usually about 4 o'clock in the afternoon by the time I get around to actually doing the photos, even though I could thumbnail the whole thing in an hour. So I waste about 7 hours. I don't know what I'm doing then, finding other things to do before I get around to doing the photos, because I hate doing it so much. But yeah, so these pink things here are where I've taken photos that I need of myself to act out the characters. And then other things are finding photographs of backgrounds and vehicles, what have you. So there's a bit here where some of the characters are driving a VW van. So I go and Google that and find the angles I want. In the story, the main guy, Reckless, has been chased to a beach front, a Southern Californian beach. So he's crashed his car, he's got out of his car, and now he's going on towards the pier. So that bit there, that's a pier, until I find out what the pier looks like. This is a car crash with the baddies in the van coming and trying to figure out what to do. So this tells me exactly what I need to do. what I need to find reference of, what I can draw out of my head, and stuff like that. So what I'm going to show you is this page, which is the bad guys, some skinheads. So that's just a very rough drawing of what they look like on a 4-page picture. I draw everything digitally, pencil everything digitally, and then print it out onto a piece of paper like this. I happen to have the pencils on this one because I changed my mind after I penciled it out and changed something. So you don't usually get to see the pencils, but I happen to have another copy. I reprinted it on the other side of the board, so I didn't waste any paper. So let's cover up that swearing. The only thing I changed on when I redid it, as this guy's head was a bit big, so I shrunk him down a little bit. So that's got all the information I need to do the inks, all the construction lines, everything is figured out what it looks like. Back in the day when I was drawing all of it on paper, I only really like drawing the figures, so I'd get all those done, fully inked, and then I'd figure out the backgrounds afterwards. But because I'm doing it in this sort of format now, where everything's digital to start with, I need to figure out the whole lot before I start inking anything. So I've figured, the van's there, their guns, everything's there that I need. Mm-hmm. So from this, I go to full inks, which is that.
Ah, brilliant.
And that's done really simply. I've got one pen, which I use for doing all the outlines and stuff, which is a Tombow pen, Japanese pen. That one's got paint all over it. And then I use a brush pen, wherever one is, brush pen like this to do all the brushy bits. So you can see there it's got a nylon brush tip to it. They're almost indestructible. They last 100 pages I'll probably get out of the tip, but the ink needs replacing every 4 or 5 pages maybe. But it's still pretty good. And I prefer these to real brushes because real brushes just aren't as good anymore. They used to be, when I first started out 40 years ago and I was taught how to use a brush, they were good. And a good brush could last you months, but now I'm lucky if I get a page out of it. And they're too expensive and they're just not very good anymore. So anyway, so that's where it goes from. Thumbnails, taking any photos, pencils, inks. And then here, that's a big black area. So instead of wasting loads of ink, I'll fill that in when it gets into Photoshop. And then I'll send the file, I'll scan that, send the file to Jake. He has some colour and it's all done.
Brilliant. So how long do you say in total then that one page?
That was quite an easy page because there's hardly any backgrounds. I can do 2 pages a day.
Wow.
Like I said, I spend Monday thumbnailing, doing research, and then I'll pencil 4 pages on Tuesday, ink 4 pages on Wednesday, and the same again Thursday and Friday. So on a good week, some weeks I've done more, some weeks I've done a lot less. This week I only did 4 pages.
Oh, someone's asking what kind of ink?
Oh, whatever comes in the brush pen. I don't know. It's just a cartridge. It's, the body of the pen. This is squeezy, and that's got ink in there. This one's pigment ink, but I don't know. It's a Pentel brush pen, Japan. But yeah, I mean, it's not waterproof. It probably fades, but I don't really mind. Okay. Doesn't matter.
I mean, I guess we can. I know it's a Sunday. I know it's a Sunday afternoon, but we could probably manage 1 minute of pen porn if you think it's necessary.
Well, do you want me to draw something?
Yeah.
Okay. That one isn't working very well, so I'll find the proper pen.
Okay.
I can talk while I'm doing it. Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
This is the same one. So it's a brush pen, like I say, and it can do fine lines and it can go a lot thicker. It dries out, which is really nice. I tend to keep 2 on the go, one that's quite dry and one that's wet, so I know what sort of marks I'm going to get. So to make it wetter again, you squeeze the barrel until a little bit of ink appears in the reservoir there, and then that starts going down to the tip and making it wet again. So you can get from very fine to very thick marks.
That's beautiful.
And this is pretty smooth paper as well. It doesn't need to be rough paper. So yeah, but I tend to use the brush just for putting in the textures and the blacks and stuff. A lot of it is outlined. I used to be able to, back when brushes were any good, I could do the whole thing in brush, and also my eyesight was a lot better then. So that doesn't help either.
Mm.
So, yeah, it's nice stuff.
I need to tell you, by the way, so Duncan says that your picture's very pretty.
Oh, thanks, Duncan.
I'm sure you're very pleased to hear that.
Yeah, I am, yes.
Actually, he's
Duncan.
a good person. If Duncan says it's good, it must be good.
Yeah, that's Duncan the Grader, that is, everybody. He's a brilliant artist. You know, if I could draw a 10th as well as he could, I'd be pleased.
Oh.
And he's a very nice man as well.
Mm. There must be something not to like. Not sure though.
Nothing I'm going to say on the internet.
Yeah, best not. We'll get YouTube will close us down.
We've known each other for over 30 years. I don't want to spoil it now.
Somebody is still asking if they can see any kind of photo ref. So I'm not exactly sure what they want to see, but you don't feel pressurised.
Well, I haven't got any to hand because it's all on my computer.
Yeah,
and I'm not on my computer, am I? I'm on a camera.
True.
So just imagine. It looks very similar to the drawings, apart from I'm a lot fatter and older. I think that's fair enough.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work goes into making it look less like I really look.
Yeah. If only they had airbrushes for real life bodies, that would be just fabulous, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Maybe I should find some Instagram filter that's going to make you look.
Yeah. Sim has asked how you managed to create, in his words, amazingly realistic-looking cityscapes when you live in Milnthorpe. He wondered if you went down to Carnforth to photograph the
the metropolis of that. No, I did loads of research before the internet was invented. I had to read books, so I've probably got 50 books on photos of New York. And every time I've been to New York, I've come back with hundreds of photos of pictures of boring things, fire hydrants and alleyways and stuff like that. But now it's much easier with the internet and Google Earth.
Yeah. But you've still got some probably quite weirdly, dare I say, nerdy kind of books on some very specific things. Have you got any of those in the studio at the moment? Or
no, I don't tend to keep those things in my studio because there's too many comic books crowding them out. I've got I've got 10 big bookcases in my studio, and there's probably another 10 around the house as well. And that's where all my non-comic books are. Things like I've got a big book on Jewish cooking when I had to draw a Jewish meal once for the Minx story. So for one, like a table setting and the candlestick thing and stuff, just so I could find out what that looks like. It always bugs me in comics when people don't do their research and things look wrong. I try to get it as close as possible. Even if I'm drawing a story set in a real city and they're traveling through the city, I'll get a map and mark their route out, and try and make it match up. Yeah. Even though no one does that any other time. The amount of films you see where they're set in Paris, you can always see the Eiffel Tower out the window. If it's set in New York, you can always see the Empire State Building. So I try to get it consistent.
What have been some of the biggest challenges then with getting that accuracy with Ed? Because all of it, because it's always set in America. Even if it's a fictional place, Criminal is set in a fictional city, so that's not too bad. We can fake that, and if I need to draw things that aren't in a particular city, that doesn't matter. But it's all alien to me. I live in England. It all looks different. Yeah. With Ed, some of the stuff I do with Ed is period as well, which makes it trickier too. Things like the Fade Out, which is set in the 40s Hollywood, that's okay because there's a lot of photo ref on that stuff. But the one I'm drawing now is set in 1985 LA, so that's too specific and not something that's particularly documented. It's not long enough ago yet to have books done on that stuff. So, but Ed's good. He'll say, watch that film, look at this website, and stuff like that. And I sometimes do. Sometimes there's never enough time. Someone's asking why you switch back to hand lettering.
It's not hand lettering, it's digital. I'll get that page back over again and show you. Once I've done my thumbnails and those little sketches, I letter the page in Illustrator on my computer. And the font, I use a font for the dialogue and the captions. On Criminal, I use a font that Comic Craft made in my handwriting, so it does look a little bit like my writing. But I only use that on Criminal. This isn't the Criminal book, so I'm just using some of the other fonts. I build all that in Illustrator, and then that gets printed as well as the pencils onto the piece of paper. just so it looks nice when the art's finished. You know, the writing's there as well.
Yeah.
And it's an important part of how the story's told, of deciding where the lettering goes. I always letter my own stuff. And that's the first thing I figure out before I draw anything. When I'm doing the thumbnails and in the sketchbook here, you know, the first thing I do is draw in these boxes and balloons, and then try and figure out what goes in the space that's left.
I mean, have you worked, you know, with letterers over time, or have you?
Oh yeah, I mean, when I started out, well, not when I started out. When I first started working for American Comics, it was all hand lettered on the boards. So I'd pencil the pages, it'd go off in a FedEx box to New York and be lettered on by hand, and then it'd come back and I'd ink it. And then about halfway through Sleeper, they changed to digital lettering, so I'd finish the whole page, and then the lettering be added afterwards. I'd always roughly pencil it in myself anyway, just to have an idea of how much space it takes up, and to make and I would always give the letterer a guide to show where I want the balloons and stuff to go, because I think it's an important part of it. I've got loads of stupid rules about how I letter my stuff, where everything's always at the top of the panel, everything's always a certain amount of distance away from the edge of the gutter and stuff like that. Stupid rules that sometimes paint me into a corner. But Ed knows I do that, so he tends to write to match that.
So, I mean, in terms of you talked about the work that's coming up and releases over the course of sort of Christmas time.
Yeah, the first Reckless book is out. I think it's the week before Christmas or 2 weeks before Christmas.
Okay, and then you've got another one.
And then the second one's out in April. Even though I've only just started drawing it, we'll be fine. You know, I know exactly how long it's going to take to do. And then the third Reckless book comes out sometime after that. We're thinking probably next September, October for the third one. So we'll get 3 out within a year anyway. And then I'll have a sleep, and then we'll start again.
A sleep?
Yeah, no. I don't know what we're going to do after that. We'd like to just carry on doing more Reckless books if they're successful enough. If no one buys them, then we'd be stupid to carry on. But if they are, I mean, I love the format of doing an original graphic novel rather than a monthly comic. I love monthly comics too. There's, you know, different stories can require different formats. So this has been written.
I think, haven't you? I mean, novel. You're quite fond of the sort of like bande dessinée and stuff like that. I mean, you have done work, haven't you?
Yeah, I've done a couple of French albums, but they're very rigid. They're either 46 or 62 pages, whereas we know sort of roughly how many pages we're going to be. We can go up and down a few because it's our book.
Yeah,
the one I do with Ed, so we can sort of do what we like. But no, Ed's finding different writing for a novel rather than episodes. You know, we don't have to end every 24 pages on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
No, we can it just it's written in chapters, but each chapter could be 4 pages long, or it could be 20 pages long, depending on what it needs. We haven't got those arbitrary format restrictions that you get in monthly comics. So the story grows differently.
Well, that's why it's so liberating doing create your own stuff, isn't it? I mean, you can pretty much you can do whatever you choose.
Yeah, we do whatever we like, yeah.
That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's only taken 40 years to get here, yeah.
No time at all. No. Earlier on, somebody was asking about your own artwork collection.
Yeah.
And that's probably a bit cheeky if we ask you again. Can we see any of that work?
Yes.
Because
yeah, you can. I'm gonna pick up my iPad and carry it around the room because the stuff's on the walls and things. So if you talk while I disappear.
Yes, okay. La-di-da-di-da. No, anyway, it's a real privilege to be able to get inside a studio. And for those who were watching earlier on at 2 o'clock, it was a video that was pre-recorded, but nonetheless was a trip into Dave McKean's studio and lair, which was...
Oh, yeah, I just watched that on my break. It was brilliant. He's got such an amazing studio.
Oh, yeah.
I'm very jealous. Okay, can you see that now? I'm pointing up at the wall.
Yep.
There's some Arnaldo Puzzu paintings there. He was an illustrator mostly in the 70s. He did the cover for Lookin' magazine every week. Lookin' was a magazine. It had some comic strips in it, like the John Byrne stuff, but it had like pin-ups of Donny Osmond or footballers or recipes and stuff. It was like a general magazine for kids, but it had loads of comic stuff in it. So he did the cover every week rather. Mostly, film, TV, music type characters. So these are a couple I've bought over the years. The one at the bottom, which is just above Big Bar's head there, that is from the TV show Police with John Alderson, which came out in the early 70s. So that was an early looking cover where he kept them quite caricatured and cartoony.
It's fantastic.
And the one above is a looking annual from around about 78, maybe, because it's got C3PO on it and ABBA, and behind there you can see there's a $6 million man and the Bionic Woman. So he'd gone much more realistic by then.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's another one there of characters from Magpie. And this one was a film poster that he did. He did loads and loads and loads of film posters. He did Get Carter. That was his most famous one. The painted poster for that. This is a David Niven film, Paper Tiger. I've never seen it, but I saw the artwork for sale in an auction, so I couldn't not buy it.
It is fantastic.
His stuff is brilliant. I studied it trying to figure out how to do it, but I don't know. Magic, I think, is how he does it. I think it's acrylics, but it might be gouache. So yeah, don't know. Just really good.
Wow. Yeah, that's really interesting. And I know you've got another collection which includes John M. Burns.
Yes, I've got some of his stuff. I did actually get that stuff out to show you.
Oh, thank you.
Because I've got some stuff framed up on the walls, but this is some of the stuff I haven't. So this is a strip he did in the 60s called The Seekers, a sort of like spy type thing, I think maybe. Quite detailed for him, quite black, quite a lot of texture. But, beautifully drawn. And that would have been like 4 inches wide in a newspaper, very badly printed, but the amount of effort he puts in is amazing because none of that would have come out in print. One of the ones he's most famous for was one called Jane, which was like a sexy girl strip in the 80s. Her clothes fell off a lot. I think that's sort of the gist of it. But so it's a bit more cartoony, a bit more humorous looking. Again, beautifully observed, beautifully drawn. I had dinner with him once at UCAC years and years ago, 20 years ago probably, and with Duncan again was there and Charlie Adlard and that. We were talking about him because we all love his stuff. And he was saying, how did you get such amazing figure work of the women? And he goes, and he had his wife with him, Julia was there. She goes, she'd pose for me. I'd tie her up naked. She'd do this, that, and the other. And she was like, wanting the floor to swallow her up. But, he thought it was quite amusing. So that's great stuff. And then he doesn't.
We're still here. YouTube hasn't closed us down yet. We're doing well. Yeah, good.
Oh, sorry. Is it rude? Is it too rude? Is it? This is a story he did called Eartha, which was in the News of the World colour supplement in the early 80s, 81, I think. Again, my nan used to cut it out of the paper for me, save it for me. And then John was selling some of the artwork a few months ago, or about a year ago maybe now. So I bought a piece of that. So
that's stunning.
This is amazing. This is all ink work. He would have drawn it all in black and white and then gone in with transparent coloured inks and did the rest. So, absolutely gorgeously drawn stuff. And so clean and so precise, and he knows exactly what he's doing. Really, really nice.
When we did the Spirit newspaper, which you curated, contribution.
I got John to do a page. That was great.
That was amazing.
Yeah. Anything else you want to see? I've got another putsu place. I've got outside my studio is a spare bedroom where Jake used to live. Jake used to live here, but he doesn't anymore. It's blue, isn't it? So I've got some more stuff on the walls. There's another John Burns piece.
Oh, nice.
But I think that was a project that never got printed.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty good. Here's a American illustrator called Robert Fawcett. This is massive. This is like 3 foot wide. Again, ink work. So this is stuff I'm not allowed to have this downstairs in the rest of the house, but I can have it here in my private little room.
Your antechamber.
That's a Paul Mann piece. That's just a rough. He did like 5 roughs for a book cover.
Gosh.
And this is with different colour passes and stuff to see what he wanted to do for the final piece. I couldn't afford a final piece, but I could afford a sketch. That's one of mine. I got to paint a Conan story a few years ago, which was excellent. Really enjoyed doing that. There's another Putsu looking cover. So that's Donny Osmond there and Ed Stewart, even though you couldn't tell that was him. So yeah.
No. Wow.
Quite a lot of good artwork. I try not to buy any more because I've run out of space. Oh, I've got a John Buscema Conan page, which I've always wanted one. That's a great one to study because it's amazing. Apparently the guy John drew it and Alfredo Alcala inked it, and apparently he inks like 14 pages a day or something stupid like that. And it's amazingly detailed, yet loose and lush stuff. You know,
Oh, thank you for that.
You're
going back in?
Yeah, I'll go back to the studio now. So another view of the studio, down some steps, try not to fall over.
Yeah, please don't.
Yeah. What else have I got? You might be interested in. There's some vinyl things. That's from Glyn Dillon's Now of Brown. I bought some really nice little Marvel Avengers figures when I went to Japan. just spent too much money buying loads of plastic rubbish.
I mean, you don't use them for anything, do you? They're literally just like ornaments.
Yeah, just ornaments, yeah. So,
and then incredible collection.
Yeah, more stuff. My studio's almost full now, so I'm going to have to stop. It's getting ridiculous. There's stuff here I haven't looked at since I moved into this house 15 years ago. It hasn't come off the shelf because there's never enough time. Too many books, not long enough to live. Yeah.
I mean, someone's asking, and I know that you did talk a bit about this earlier on about favourites. One of your favourites. What's a favourite of yours? I mean, you could have it as an all-time favourite or a recent favourite piece of work that you've done.
I don't know. I think the Fade Out is probably the best book I've done, but I'm not sure if it's the best drawings I've done. But I think it's the best graphic novel book. No, I mean I've done a couple of paintings that I'm really pleased with. I've got one lying around somewhere. I'll just walk over there. I'll carry on talking while that looks. See if I can find it.
Do some kind of filler music. There's no rush. It's a Sunday.
Okay, I did a painting in the back of the comics. We do an essay about a film. So I did this painting. The film was called The Threat. I've never heard of it. I haven't heard of the actress either. But I did this painting of her, and I think that's the best paint I've ever done. It just came out a million times better than I thought it was going to. The one I did the month after was back to my normal standard, but this one I'm really, 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 really pleased with. So this is painted in acrylic gouache. So gouache is like opaque watercolor, but it's usually not waterproof. But this is acrylic, so it's a bit waterproof, not totally, but you can. It dries matte, and you can have it really thin. So like here, it would be very thin paint, or more opaque where like the white stuff on the nose and things. But yeah, I was just really pleased with how well it came out. So that's probably the best thing I've ever done.
Yeah, that is lush.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm keeping that one.
There'll be loads of people on Twitter now saying, when are you going to do a print? Yeah, don't let that one go.
I've got a print of that one. There's a print of that on my big cartel store.
There you go.
It's closed at the moment because I've closed it for 2 months so I can get some work done. I spent 2 days this week packaging up orders and signing books and sketching them and stuff, and it's taken too long, so I'm going to stop it for another couple of months. But when it opens again in December, probably there'll be copies of that still there.
So Christmas presents galore.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
So there's a few different A3 prints, and I have signed and sketched in books as well.
Brilliant. So another thought that came in, actually, I'm just kind of reading it now, is thinking about, I mean, you were involved in our Pass the Panel, which is the next session that we're broadcasting, which was the Pass the Story Down the Line, comic creators around the world scenario. And I know you've been involved in things like that before, and in fact you were the architect of the Spirit newspaper, which had an amazing lineup. But if you were starting one of those projects again now and you had your choice, who would be the sort of 5 people that would be your like A-list, I'm going to ask them and they're the ones I want?
They have to be active now and alive.
They can be dead or alive.
Okay then. So you didn't prepare me for this at all, did you? So I don't know.
Didn't know. No, it's really cool actually.
Well, I'm sure there's people that I didn't include last time that I would love to get in. I'd never want to do it again. I hate being an editor. Creators are so hard to get organised.
No, it's herding cats, isn't it?
It is totally herding cats. I mean, some people were brilliant and, their stuff turned up months in advance, and then some people's stuff turned up 2 hours before it was due at the printers. Naming no names, but yeah, so I don't know. No, sorry, I can't answer that one.
Maybe we'll leave that and we'll come back again at 9 o'clock this evening. How about that?
Yeah.
I know it's too difficult because you think there might be people listening here. If I don't put them on my list, I'm in big trouble.
I think next, if I did anything like that again, I think I'd like to go less mainstream. All the ones I chose were quite traditional, I suppose. No, so I'd rather go a bit more to the arty end of things. Or,
what do you mean? What do you mean by the arty end of things?
Well, people that do stuff that isn't necessarily even aimed at sort of traditional American or British comics. They don't draw realistically. They draw more abstractly or more, much more stylized, humor stuff or whatever, stuff like that. Stuff that I still like, but I wouldn't necessarily. No, I don't draw like that. No, someone like Andy Watson, maybe. I'm just looking around my studio now thinking, who have I got? Yeah, someone like him. Oh, Jaime Hernandez, that'd be the top of my list, actually.
Oh, okay.
He'd be the top of my list, yeah. So I spent so much time looking around my studio at books and picking them off the shelves thinking, and then like 3 hours has gone, and I wonder why I haven't got any work done that day. Yeah.
Definitely the Hernandez brothers. I think Love and Rockets is one of your all-time favourites, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It's my favourite comic, yeah. Well, my favourite series, shall we say. The Jaime stuff. I like the Gilbert stuff too, but the other stuff is just perfect.
Yeah.
He's dedicated his life to telling one massive story, which you don't really get in comics very often. Well, they've both done that, but and to do it so well as well. Yeah, great. Yeah, and he can draw so nice, which doesn't hurt. But it's that is one of the few comics I read that I really get into the story as well as the art.
I think that is the thing, isn't it? You said earlier on that the art's the first thing. If you don't like the art, then you probably aren't going to get drawn into reading it.
No.
The story, and it's very, dare I say, I shouldn't be saying this probably, but it's relatively rare to get the two fused so well. That's why your work with Ed is so well received, because the two blend together perfectly.
Yeah.
And I guess the same is, they're brothers, but that doesn't necessarily mean it would have worked in that way. But it is quite a thing to pull off.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I don't know. It's getting better. I think there's less than there's more and more avenues there are for getting comics out, where you don't have to aiming for Marvel or DC isn't a lot of people's ambition anymore. And there's lots of other ways you can get your stuff out. So I think you get a lot more things that are a creator's vision rather than just a sausage factory of churning out stuff.
So, someone's just asking what advice you would give to a new artist, and obviously give advice to your own son, who's a relatively new artist.
Yeah, I tell him not to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Don't bother. Don't go there.
I started a long time ago before there was all these avenues available. So, and it was totally different then. So how I got in doesn't exist anymore. But I think, the way to do it is just to make the comics. There's no point saying, oh, I'm going to do it. I think the thing I always tell people when they come up to me at a festival or anything like that, I say, start small. I get so many people say, oh, I've got this idea for this 200-page epic. I'm like, you're never going to do it. It take me a year to draw that, and I do it every single day. Start small, do a 3-page story, see how you get on, and then do another one. And eventually you've got enough to fill a book.
Yeah.
I think that's the way to do it. You'll always have more ideas. You're not only going to have that one idea. And the more you do, the easier it gets. Well, slightly easier.
As a sort of follow-up to that, again, another question. This is going well. Questions is how
the
you...
sheer volume what you do makes you better, or the sheer volume of writing.
Yeah. That is how you got into it. The question is, how did you get into it? How long did it take? How did you make your break?
Oh, right, okay. Well, like I showed earlier before, I was drawing comics for fun with my friends when I was a kid, from as long ago as I can remember. And when I was 13, I think, me and one of my friends who did the comics with, Peter, we went to a class at my school. There was an adult education class for how to draw comics. And we pestered our teacher to let us go, even though we were only 13. And we got to go. And the guy who ran that class, a guy called Ken Houghton, who worked for the girls' comics and Look and Learn and stuff like that back in the 70s. This is in the 1978 when I first started going to his class. And he taught us. I went into that class just wanted to learn how to draw Spider-Man better, or Conan the Barbarian. I didn't care about any other sort of comics. I was totally into Marvel comics and nothing else really. But he drew girls' comics, and he taught us, me, Pete, and the rest of the class how to do stuff that might be useful for him. One of his reasons for doing the class was to find new artists for DC Thompson and Fleetway, who did the girls' comics at the time. So by the time I was 15, so I've been going to this class for 2 years, he thought I was good enough to give a chance to. So I penciled a story for him. It was his job. He'd got the work, and he gave it to me to pencil, and then he'd ink it and change whatever he saw fit. And it went okay, and then I got another one to do, and then another one. And after about 3 years, I've probably drawn 50 pages for him, maybe, over 3 years, which is nothing. But, I was 15, 16, 17 by then, and I spent it all on records and clothes and things like that. So it was great. And this is all through his agent. And then by the time I was 18, his agent took me on in my own right and started getting me work, including stuff for 2000 AD and Crisis magazine when that was going. But it took years. I mean, I was lucky because I was still at school and I could afford to make mistakes. I turned in so many jobs that were terrible, and I never worked for those people again. And I could take my time. I didn't have, the money was nice, but I didn't need the money because I was living at home. So I could afford to, to learn and not rush too much. It wasn't until I left college and I went full time, which was in '88 when I started working for Crisis, and then 2000 AD, that it seemed like a real job then. Before then, it was my hobby. I went to college to do graphic design, and I thought I was going to be a designer or sort of more general illustrator, maybe. And I was just and then my agent found out that Crisis was starting and they were looking for artists. So me and Duncan Fagredo and Matt Brooker, Disraeli, John McCrae, Garth Ennis, we all got our big breaks in that magazine. Even if we'd been working before that, that was the one that sort of solidified it all. So I think it's just like chipping away is the way to do it. Don't expect to, jump in at the top. I mean, back 10, 15 years ago, I drew Marvel Zombies, and I was an overnight success story then. But I'd already been working for 25 years then. But no one take much notice.
I mean, it's interesting because I think, if you don't mind me touching on this, you can unplug your machine if I'm saying the wrong things, but it's not like you came from a family that was practicing artists, and you were being not from that kind of background at all, were you?
no I mean I grew up on a council estate, and my dad had a normal job in a factory, and my mum had the odd part-time job and stuff, but he did have some artistic talent, so he didn't discourage it, but he didn't think it was going to be a way to make a living. So because we didn't know anyone that had ever done it. I come from a very small town in Suffolk. There wasn't any artists there, probably. Well, there might have been, but I didn't know about any of it. So I was encouraged to go to college and get a trade as such, in graphic design. Yeah, so I was encouraged as much as it kept me out of trouble. But art materials are quite expensive, so that was the hard bit. I'd have to make a brush last for 6 months, and I couldn't afford another one. I mean, it sounds terrible now, but it was easy because I knew no better, but it's also hard. I was of the generation where college was free. I went to art college for free. I got a grant. There was no fees. I could afford to mess around for 5 years at college on the off chance I might get a job as an artist at the end of it. And it was a lot easier then. I didn't come out of college with a massive debt like they all do now.
Yeah, I mean, it is a completely different context, obviously, but but it's kind of I personally get sick of listening to the mantras that often you see people who've been successful and they're going, oh, you can do anything, just have a dream and follow your dream and everything else. But actually, you can kind of prove the you can do anything thing, because that was your own,
I had. If you don't get support from coming from a relatively well-off family, I got my support from the state.
Yeah,
and that's been taken away from us now. So it is a lot harder.
It is hard, isn't it? I think.
But there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with having a proper job and doing comics on the side. Loads of people do that. Loads of people you wouldn't dream do. Like household names in comics do stuff apart from comics to make the money. I'm lucky. I make good money doing it, but it's taken me a long time to get here.
As you say,
most people don't make any money doing it.
Yeah,
I don't know what you can do about that. You can't get into it for the money. If you want to make money drawing, go and work in computer games.
So there are two questions here. The first one is quite a specific one as to whether or not you're a fan of Taiyo Matsumoto.
I don't know who that is.
I think that means maybe not then, or maybe if you are, you don't realise you are.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
So that's that
one.
Hold
on a minute. I'm looking at my shelf. Yes, I am a fan.
I knew that was going to happen.
Ping pong. He did ping pong.
Hey.
So, what's the other one?
Does that mean your shelves in alphabetical order?
No, that means I saw it and I could. And he also did concrete as well.
Okay.
Yeah. No, yeah, he did ping pong, which I haven't read yet because I only bought it a couple of months ago. But he did Tekken Concrete, which is beautiful, beautiful work. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, sorry, I didn't remember the name, but I'm useless like that.
It's interesting as to why someone was asking that. Either they see something in your work, or it's just.
I wish. No, I don't think there's anything of this in my work really. I can't get my head around most of it. Yeah, it's weird. Yeah. Okay. Yes, I'm more well read than I thought I was.
Someone's interested in seeing more of your drawing materials. Is that possible?
Yes.
I know you've shown us some pens, but
okay, I'll move my iPad and we can have a look. So my drawing table is in the middle of my room at the moment. It's usually up against the window there. Oh, look at that! I had the windows replaced 3 years ago and I haven't got around to replastering around them yet.
That's normal.
So I've got a little trolley here and it's got all my stuff on it. So there's a watercolor palette there with a brush and some tubes of paint, a water pot, and then here's different pens and stuff. I said before I went to Japan a couple of years ago with you, Julie, and Duncan and Charlie and a few other people. And we went to an amazing art shop and we just bought all the different brush pens they had just to see which ones were any good. So, yeah, a few different brush pens, a great big fat marker that I found in the shop, which I've never used because it's really messy. It's got liquid ink in it and it just gets everywhere. So, and then in the trolley, there's just stuff like rags and spare pens and tape and stuff like that. What else is in here? There's a couple of drawers in here, and inside there's some coloured inks, which I barely ever use, and they're all leaked inside, a bit sticky. And then some markers and things which I never use anymore. I've got these markers. I did some storyboarding for an advertising agency back in 1987, and as part of the fee, they let me take all the markers with me. So I've still got some. They're over 30 years old. Some of them are dried up, and some of them still work. I don't really use those much anymore either. I used to be really into different materials, but it's different now with computer. You can just do what you like. Oh, yeah. Try everything.
Well, it's kind of like you said. It's a boon, isn't it? Having the digital for like speed and, in a way, yeah, not getting too hung up on making mistakes and things. But
yeah, you can correct.
But you lose so much from that sort of tactile engagement.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad that I learned how to use real materials to start with before computers came along. Definitely, I think that definitely helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I did my foundation course at college, we tried everything. So they didn't actually teach us. They just said, "There you go. There's such things as oil paint. There's such things as acrylic. There's such things as coloured inks and stuff like that." And I'd try a bit of everything just to see what I like. But you can spend a whole lifetime figuring out how to use that one tube of paint properly. And also, it definitely helps to have a rough idea of what different materials can do. But you shouldn't really be a slave to it, I don't think.
No, I mean,
and I'm sure I'm doing all this watercolour stuff wrong, but if it gets the effect I want, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely. I mean, we were talking to Martin Rosen yesterday. He just believed in getting dirty. He thought that, what he got the most buzz out of was actually being covered in paint and paint everywhere.
Yeah.
But that's Martin for you.
Yeah. No, I can't. Yeah, sometimes I like that. Mostly I get dirty hands now by changing the ink on my printer and the cartridges.
Yeah, that's not quite the same thing.
Not really, no. Not really hands-on, is it?
What motivates you to keep drawing?
I quite like money.
Mm-hmm.
It is my job. I mean, I do love it, and I do it. I say I do it for nothing. I wouldn't really if anyone's going to ask me. I'm always, I think in me I might have a good comic. I can read it, and I'm keen to keep going until it comes out.
Okay.
That's not being falsely modest. I don't think. I think. Well, maybe I haven't got a good comic in me, but I want to keep going on and trying to find out. It's. I mean, it is a job, but it's also everything. You know, it informs every aspect of my life. Being an artist, not necessarily a comic artist particularly, but being an artist, and then my wife's an artist, my son's an artist, and you know, it's just something that we're all really into, and it informs, you know, every book you read, every film you watch, every TV show you watch, every painting you look at, every comic you read. You know, it's just something that is always there, and it'd be a shame if it wasn't there.
So that is sort of a lovely response that is quite prescient, bearing in mind that Rishi Sunak was suggesting allegedly that
to retrain, yeah.
What would you retrain as?
I couldn't. I've never had any other job.
No.
Well, I had one when I was about 14, before my comics career took off when I was 15. I walked up and down the high street wearing a sandwich board, advertising local businesses. I managed 2 Saturday afternoons because my friends or people at school would see me and take the mick out of me so badly that I just stopped doing it. So that's the only thing. That's the closest I ever got to a job.
Yeah.
Decided I didn't like that. No, I've been very lucky that I can, draw and get paid.
I mean, you make that sounds very simple, but it's through graft. I mean, you work long hours, as you were saying earlier on.
Yeah. But it could be worse. I could be working long hours on something I hate.
Yeah.
I choose long hours. I don't have to bring out so many comics. I could go the French way and do 50 pages a year rather than 250 pages a year. But like I said right at the beginning earlier today.
Okay.
I'm not in it. I'm not in it to get some really nice drawings done. I'm in it to tell stories in comics. So 50 pages a year would be, I'd noodle away on 1 page a week and spoil whatever it is that my stuff has got.
Mm.
Now, I like the spontaneous look of some of it, the roughness of it, the scratchiness, sometimes where it doesn't look like I know what I'm doing look, and if I had more time to spend on a piece, then I think I'd just kill it. It's not, on this painting today, you asked me before how long I've ever been on it now, and I did an hour online, obviously, then I did another hour, and then I just looked at it this afternoon while, looking at the internet. It doesn't, sometimes you don't have to be doing it all the time. It's good to come back later and you can see all the things you need to work on.
Yeah.
No, I can look at this with a fresh eye now because I took a couple of hours off.
Yeah.
And ideally, I'd leave it till tomorrow and have a proper fresh look at it. But this is good enough, I think.
I mean, do you ever crave for being part of like the French comic scene where, I mean, they're rock stars, artists. They're rock stars though, aren't they? I mean, here, it's not like you're not. I'm not suggesting.
No, I mean, I've got a bit of an ego about it. I mean, one of the good things about doing the books I do with Ed is because I design them too. I can put my name on the front really big. I'd like people to know I've done the work. I don't think I'd much like working in film or something like that where you're one of millions and your name isn't at the front of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that. Sorry, what's the question again? Have I just gone off the track a bit there?
No. I was just asking about whether you ever regret not being in the born in France and being.
Oh right, yeah. Sorry. No, God no. I mean, I do like going to festivals and having people say they like my stuff, but that's nice and everything. But I don't need people following me around on the street. I've gone to Angoulême a few times, and one time I went about 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. Walking Dead TV show just started on French TV, and I was there with Charlie. And he had a camera crew following him around all weekend. And I could think of nothing worse. He had one morning off where we could go and have a look around the exhibitions and the festival and stuff. The rest of the time he had to be on his best behaviour. No, that sort of public eye part of it. That's what I like about comics. You're quite anonymous, but can still be quite, what's the word? Quite renowned, I suppose. People like the work, but they don't really care about who makes it that much, which is nice.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, it's the nature of the beast with comic artists, in my view, though, having worked with so many different artists in different medium. This is just very different. I think comic artists, they're quite like being isolated, actually. Maybe lockdown suits them.
I find it very uncompetitive as well.
Yeah.
A lot of other people, I mean, like my wife's a fine artist and she knows lots of other painters and they're all out for themselves. They won't share any tips or contacts or any of that sort of stuff. I mean, she does, but some of her friends don't. You might be watching. But I find in comics that everyone's very happy to help everybody else. I get offered loads of work which I can't do, and I always suggest someone else for it. I'm pleased to see them do it. I don't think, I'm not going to suggest anybody, because even though I can't do it, I don't want anyone else to do it. There's nothing better. Actually, saying that, I did turn down one job which I did regret, for Captain Morgan's rum. There's a picture of a pirate on the label, and years ago someone asked me if I'd paint that pirate for the label, and I didn't have time, and I didn't think I was the right person for the job, so I recommended someone else, someone I don't know but whose work I like, American painter, and he got the job. And now I see that I'd never even noticed that bottle of rum ever before, but as soon as I didn't do it, it's in every shop, it's everywhere, and all I see is that chance I had that I threw away. So I'm slightly about that, but he did a much better job than I ever would have done, so I don't really mind.
We've got we've got about 10 minutes max, and we've got.
Right. You want me to do some more painting, did you? Should I paint while we talk? I don't need to.
Yeah, if you can carry on painting, that would be fab. Yeah. We've got a couple of. We've got 3 questions actually that have just come in. They all relate to this really. But do you get nervous before you ink a nice drawing in case you mess it up? Is one question.
I did get nervous about this piece before, because one of the reasons is that the pencils have been printed out digitally onto watercolour paper, and sometimes they bleed when I put the paint on. So I did one of these a couple of weeks ago, and the first layer of paint just pulled all the drawing off. So I had to do another one, but I had a digital file that I'm going to print out again. The same with the pencils. It's digital pencils now, so I can print it out again if it does go wrong. It's only a comic page. It doesn't really matter.
I mean, again, it's quite a personal question because of what you're working on at the moment, but someone's asking, is there a dream film DVD cover that you would really like to do?
Oh, right. That's a good question. I don't know. I think if it's something I was a really big fan of, it would spoil it for me. So, I mean, I would like to do some Star Warsy type stuff, and I've done some Star Wars stuff for comics, which was pretty cool, but don't know. No, I can't think of one offhand.
Okay.
I can't think of one that I think, yes, I'll be perfect for that. Why didn't they use me? I like doing the DVD covers I've done, because I never choose what films they are. They come to me and they think I'll be a good fit, even if I've never heard of the film or had no interest in it beforehand. Obviously someone else has seen something in me, in my work, that they think will suit that. So I like that. I used to like that when I was doing work for hire comics all the time. I never had any career plan. I just did what came along that sounded interesting. It's very rare that I turned down work because I never got offered that much to have the luxury of choosing projects. I'd take whatever came along. And I like that. It's not a very good way to grow a career because you can't really control it. But the good thing about it was I never knew what was coming next. And that's one of the reasons I don't want to write my own stuff, because I think I'd pander to the worst things about my work, stuff I like doing, but I find easy.
So what's you doing? What's you doing now? Sorry, I'm.
Sorry. Can you see what I'm doing? Yeah, I've got all I've got now is some black paint. It's Mars black, which granulates heavily. It sort of separates out into like a grainy pattern when it dries. So I'm just doing the last few bits of dark shadows. It's meant to be that the eyes are meant to be the darkest part of the painting, but not always. But so I'm just adding a little bit to that. Now I just put my finger in it, so I'm bound to forget I've got paint on my finger, and then just put it over everything in a minute. That's can't do that with digital, can you? So sometimes I forget. The amount of times I'm wiping my hand across a painting trying to undo something.
That is gorgeous, though. I mean, she is.
Yeah, I'm quite pleased with that.
She's beautiful.
One of the things I find hard about this. It's not exactly fine art, but it counts as, it's not for print, so it's to go on someone's wall or at least in a drawer somewhere. And I find it really hard to tone it down a bit, because I'm so used to painting for print. where you want to get as much impact as you possibly can. The whitest whites, the blackest blacks, and every sort of colour in between. I find it really hard to sort of keep it more subtle. So, I mean, I can tell already that I've already overworked this. There's far too much contrast between the darks and the lights, and, you know, but not this black. I think, you know, probably an hour ago when I started putting some of these darker colours in, I should have toned it down a little bit. But it's too late now, and I'm sure it'll be fine in the end.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, whoever has commissioned that, I think he might even be watching.
He is. He's told me already, yeah.
I hope he's very pleased with that. There's a lot of envy out there from people on social media saying they would like one of those too, kind of thing. It's very beautiful.
I very rarely take on commissions. Like I say, I did 4 because I needed a new computer. So I'll have a new computer in a month or so. But then I've got too much work on to do any more commissions. So I think when I finish the next Reckless book, which is middle of February, I might take on a couple more commissions then. Just because I'm quite missing doing the stuff we do in the back of the monthly comics, where I get to do a painting from the film. That's one of the reasons why I started doing these in the first place, is that it just makes a change. Do you miss the contact with individual fans at festivals? I mean, only the ones I like.
Obviously.
Yeah,
but you do.
It's weird. Yeah, I mean, festivals are weird because half of it you go to see your friends, and half of it you go to see the fans. So I miss both those things. It's a weird year, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really sad.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's nice to see people that say they like the stuff. You know, because I spend most of the time in a room by myself, doubting everything I do, thinking, you know, well, sometimes I think I'm great, sometimes I think I'm terrible. And it's not until it actually gets out there and someone reads it and likes it that makes it worthwhile.
Yeah, no, it's very true. A couple more questions here, because I know we're running out of time. I'm not sure if you've done this already, but someone said, would Sean do film posters for companies like Mondo and Vice Press?
I did get asked to do a Mondo one once, and we got as far as approved sketch, and then the person that commissioned me left the company and it sort of fell apart. But those other ones where like collectors band together and pay to do one, nah, not really. You know, it's that thing where you asked me before, you know, what would be the perfect film to illustrate.
Yeah,
I don't really think like that. I'd rather just be a fan of these things. Yeah. It's different when I'm doing a DVD cover, because I don't know why it is different. Because it's smaller, even though a lot more people see it, because it's obviously, you know, they've made thousands of copies of it. I don't know, there's something about it that's a bit more, the pressure isn't quite there as much. I mean, obviously I want to do a nice job, and especially the Criterion ones, it's always for the same art director, so I don't want to let him down. You know, but those film poster things, nah, not really. I've turned down one last week, and he asked me every couple of years, and I was going, no, it's not really my thing.
Yeah, I mean, you don't
I like seeing other people doing it.
You don't want to fall out of love with the films that you love, do you? So
no, I mean, it's different. This is doing a Blade Runner piece, but it's a very simple piece. This, you know, if I was going to do a film poster, they'd want something much more finished, much more labour intensive. The thing that would appeal to me is that it would be screen printed, and it'd be quite nice to figure out how to do something just for screen printing. Really, I know we did one for the festival a few years ago with Kill or Be Killed. I did a locally screen printed giant poster of that, and we sold some at the festival, and I sold some privately as well, and that was interesting. But that was mostly for the technique.
Yeah.
And I've done it now. I've done a screen print. I'd like to, you know, another one would be nice because I could figure out how to do it better. But yeah, as far as the actual subject of doing a film poster, no, not particularly.
Well, we've got 1 minute left, and Yomi, our friends that you remember.
Oh, hello, Yomi.
He said he wants it for his wall, so I think there might be a fight.
Sorry, it's already spoken for, isn't it?
Anyway, thank you so much for all your time today. Pleasure. You must be absolutely shattered. We've disrupted a Sunday when you might be resting or doing something else, but it's been absolutely fascinating. I hope everybody out there has got as much out of it as we have.
I hope it wasn't too boring.
Oh, quite the opposite. I mean, we've easily filled 2 hours. Somebody's also said, please, will you do a Desert Island Comics too? So that's the next one on your list to try and
okay, then, yeah, okay, yeah, I can do that.
All right, but just say thank you very much. The picture's beautiful. I'm very jealous, and we'll hopefully we'll see you soon. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Julie. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.